Good morning, everybody. I'm Misha Fayon. I am just a real world woman who got really sick. And when doctors, nutritionists, everyone else failed me, I found a way and it surprisingly got rid of almost all of the diseases and disorders and ailments that I was suffering from. And that was just really addressing insulin resistance. So I talk about insulin resistance a lot because it really affects almost all of our health. 95% of our diseases and disorders today are related to insulin resistance. So, today I want to talk about the liver and actually your gallbladder a little bit too. There's a lot of really interesting stuff. Now, I'm not going to be able to cover all of it. It's an intense and deep topic, but we're going to get into some things about how your liver is related to your insulin resistance, how insulin resistance is making your liver worse, how getting your liver better can help not only with your insulin resistance, but weight loss, memory function, Alzheimer's, all of that. And then I'm gonna give you some signs and symptoms that your liver is starting to fail before you ever have it show up on your blood work. So let's dive into all of this. You guys, I encourage questions. I don't have all the answers. I'm going to say that because I'm just a real world person. But if you give me a question that I don't know the answer to, then I'm going to go find the answer and come back and talk about it so that we can all start to get better. And I love when everybody asks questions because it helps me find more stuff to go look up. And that's what gives part of what gives my life joy. Art and knowledge are the two things that make me happy. So when you guys ask questions, it makes me really happy, and hopefully it helps you and someone else. So your liver and the gallbladder is the topic today. I understand. I'm going to recap real quick again. Insulin resistance is just when we're getting in too much glucose for the most part, and our body cannot regulate that glucose with insulin anymore. Insulin is a hormone that helps carry the energy from glucose to the cells of your body. When insulin is too present too often, we start to shut down to the clues of insulin, and that's really insulin resistance. So now, at this stage, when we have too much glucose coming in and we have insulin resistance going on, the liver starts to struggle, and the liver cannot metabolize fats in the way or sugars in the way that it should. One of the issues is that we've had as we've had this excess glucose, we're getting fat storage built up around the body. Fat storage occurs in the liver at the same time it does other places. That visceral fat, number one, if your belly is starting to poke out, whether you're thin or fat or heavy, you have an insulin resistance problem. And when that belly is starting to poke out, that's probably one of the first things you want to understand is know that when your belly's looking like that, you're going to be having problems with your liver. That's one of the early warning signs. Let's talk about the rest later. But now, too much glucose in the system, too much insulin in the system. The insulin cannot deal with all the glucose, and so it's storing some of it. It's changing, it cannot deal with all of it. So while the fatty liver is building up, it also is no longer regulating glucose in the system. It's causing your body to also, one of the dysfunctions is it spurns gluconeogenesis, where we're getting glucose from sources that are not carbohydrates. So not only are you getting in excess carbohydrates when you're insulin resistant, now your liver is dysfunctioning and it's finding more glucose from other sources to dump into your bloodstream. And all this means your blood sugar is going up and up and up, and you're at risk of building or creating diabetes type 2 in your system. And it all started with insulin resistance, but this whole fat storage and sugar metabolism is the basis of why all of this stuff is happening. So know that your liver is really important. But when you start to have this fatty buildup in the liver, it only takes 2% of your liver being fatty for your liver to start to dysfunction and cause all these problems. Well, in the high amounts of glucose or carbohydrates that we're eating all the time, and the frequency that we're eating it all the time, means that we're building up all of this disarray of liver fat and everything else in our body. Now, one of the other things I'm going to pause and talk about is people are like, oh my gosh, this whole fatty liver thing, I got to cut back on fats. So, how many of you have been told that, know that, just think that that's what you need to do if you're worried about cholesterol buildup in your blood vessels, if you're worried about fatty liver, if you're worried about your kidneys, you got to cut back on the fats in your diet so that they're not building up in those areas. Put a 1 in or tap the hearts for me if you've understood that, because that's kind of what I was told and everybody else thinks that is going on. So don't don't be afraid that you may have the wrong answer, because we all do. And I was there too. But the truth is, sugar is causing the fat buildup, not fat. Not when we're talking about the right kinds of fat. I go into that a lot. Too many omega 6s are going to cause a problem. But the biggest cause of the problem is sugar disrupting how your body can metabolize and utilize fat. Karen, thank you for that answer. So, and it's, it is what it is. We all are working on some knowledge that is probably from old science or old scientific suppositions, where they thought a thought and they started acting on that thought before they had the science to back it up. Okay. So not only does that happen with the liver and the glucose production, so it increases elevated fasting glucose numbers when your liver is at risk because of this whole insulin resistance thing, but it increases that gluconeogenesis, where glucose is being produced from non-carbohydrate sources, and it impairs glycogen storage in the liver. Now, what's glycogen storage? Glycogen is broken down little pieces of glucose that are then repackaged into little packets for use later. It's like that quick acting whatever it is, it's just ready to go. So when we need energy, the liver then breaks down those glycogen stores to get energy back into the system. But with insulin resistance, it's impairing how much and how the liver stores these little packets of energy. But then it also changes your lipid metabolism. So increased de novo lipogenesis, or fat production, is occurring when you have insulin resistance. You're creating way too many fat cells. You're having a reduced fatty acid oxidation. Fatty acid oxidation allows us to utilize fat and burn fat when we need it. And when we have a reduction in that oxidation of fatty acid, we're also building up some oxidative stress in the cells. And that's an interesting premise. For most laymen, they're like, "Wait, what just happened here?" She said it's reducing fatty acid oxidation in the fat cells, but it's also increasing oxidation in the fat cells. So the damage to the fat cells when a fat cell is not working properly is what I'm talking about. So the fat cell cannot be converted for energy as quickly, and um, that inability to create the energy from the fat cell then allows oxidative stress or inflammation to build up within the cell, and now the cell becomes even more insulin resistant, creating more sugar in your bloodstream. And all of this is happening in your liver as well. One of the interesting things, and I haven't had time to look at it, is I talk a lot about subcutaneous fat versus visceral fat. So we're going to pause for a second and talk about that. Subcutaneous fat is generally arms, breasts, legs, any place that really jiggles. That's subcutaneous fat. It's white fat, it's a storage fat. It's not pretty, but it's not entirely harmful until there's way too much of it. We can talk about that on another podcast. But visceral fat is in and under the muscle wall of the belly and in up into the neck and tongue. The visceral fat has something called mitochondria. They are energy powerhouses in our cells. So the visceral fat is what we call brown fat because of the presence of this mitochondria that's constantly creating energy. And we need that in this area because that's where all of our organs are held. So that visceral fat is there to protect, to cushion, to warm, to give energy to those organs. And we especially have a lot of visceral fat when we're babies. You'll see that, they're little chubby babies. That's healthy because they need the visceral fat to keep them warm and keep things moving. We don't need it as adults. Babies are not moving around as much. They need that inside energy. us adults should be moving around more, and our chemistry has changed. We no longer need that much visceral fat. And yet, because of today's diet and the frequency at which we're eating, most not only American adults, but worldwide adults have this buildup of excess visceral fat in their belly area. That's all linked to insulin resistance. Now, how does that come back to the liver? So this increased visceral fat is also building up in the liver. And again, 2% of the liver being fatty starts to cause a problem. And it causes all the problems with the fat breakdown and the glucose breakdown, or the glucose production from other cells, other sources than carbohydrates. But now we're having this problem, and along with all of that, triglycerides and cholesterol are building in the liver because of all of this dysfunction with insulin resistance. So that excess production of insulin is also increasing production of inflammatory cytokines. It's creating inflammation throughout the body. So again, that chronic insulin resistance is creating enhanced oxidative stress throughout the body, and it's increasing the risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver. So by the time you have that belly poking out, your liver's already probably fatty. But some of the other things that are happening with insulin resistance in your liver, um, as the liver becomes fatty, as it becomes resistant to insulin, it also is starting to reduce the contractile rate of all of the organs within that muscle wall. So the liver is one of them. It just is not functioning as well. And you start to be at risk for cirrhosis. And that then can cause a change to where you might need a liver transplant later down the road. We want to take care of all of this sooner rather than later. And we want to understand that this is happening so that we can avoid it, so we don't have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I'm going to pause for a second, because one of the other things that's happening here is fruit juice. Everybody knows that fruit juice is a healthy drink. Like, we should have fruit juice before we have soda. We should have fruit juice over many other drinks. We should have, that's the healthy drink, right? So type a 2 in if you know that fruit juice is a healthy drink. And that's what we should be giving our kids. That's what helps us with diabetes. These are all things we've been taught and told. Or just tap the screen and so I can see hearts come up if you guys understand that fruit juice is healthy for you to drink. Does anybody understand that? And does anybody currently drink fruit juice? Whether it's in your mixed drinks or just as a standalone. How many of you guys have a glass of orange juice or apple juice with your breakfast? Does anybody do that? Well, let's get to it, because fruit juice is actually fruit unwrapped from the fiber that helps us digest the sugars in it. And the sugars in fruit juice are fructose. When you're drinking fruit juice, you're getting way too much sugar all at once. You're not getting in enough fiber. You're getting in all the calories of like 8 oranges in a glass of orange juice. More than 8, isn't it? It's like 30 oranges or something. So now you've got this increased vitamin intake, but you have an increased intake of fructose, and you have an increased, a increased intake of calories, and all of that is building fatty liver disease. It's one of the reasons we see children at 6 years of age with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So Dr. Bickman says that fruit juice is similar to alcohol, just without the hangover. It's doing similar things to your liver. So if you've always seen alcoholics as those people who are at risk of losing their liver, well, you better start thinking about all the fruit juice that we're keeping around giving our families, because it's doing the same thing. So now we're not waiting for our children to reach age 20 or 30 and have developed this alcohol problem. We're giving them the alcohol problem as a child through fruit juice. I'm not saying fruit is bad. Fruit is really good. Eat your fruit, don't drink it, because that drinking of it just again means you've removed the fiber, you've increased the fructose, and you've increased the calories of something that should be healthy, and that never ends up with a healthy outcome. In fact, it's causing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So One of the things when the liver is not contracting as well, it also affects your gallbladder. This happened to me, right? So my liver was failing. No doctor addressed it. Nobody said anything about the numbers in my liver in my panel. I was so inundated. I wasn't paying attention to my labs like I should. As I started getting better, I was looking at the comparison of my labs because I was excited, and I realized that my liver had been failing, but nobody ever talked to me about it, and it was because they were so focused on the diabetes. They were like, "We gotta get that under control first." Well, how about this? If you get the liver under control, you'll get the diabetes and the insulin resistance under control. So how do we control the liver? We're gonna talk about that in a second because I was about to talk about gallbladder. The gallbladder is attached to the liver, and it's like the filtration system for your liver for fats. So as we have it produces bile, and that helps break down our foods. But in the presence of insulin resistance, two things are happening in the gallbladder. We're creating too much cholesterol because remember, cholesterol is created by sugars and omega 6s. So healthy fats are not a problem. It's those two and predominantly sugars that are causing this excess cholesterol. But now in the gallbladder, cholesterol is building up in there. The intestines, the liver, everything inside the body, inside this muscle wall, are not contracting like they should be. There's some nerve damage going on with insulin resistance. It's impeding nerve um, communication. So now the gallbladder isn't contracting like it should. It's not releasing the bile to break down the food like it should when it should. So that cholesterol is building up. It's getting hard and it's causing sludge, and it eventually becomes a stone in your gallbladder. Too much cholesterol from too much sugar, gallbladder not contracting from too much sugar, and now we have a problem. And so somebody like me gets their gallbladder taken out because it was so destroyed by the time they found it. I was almost 2 hours from, I was actually 2 hours from death, is what they told me when I finally got to the hospital with my gallbladder failing, and nobody addressed it in all my years of healthcare. And I was going to the doctor at least twice a month at that point. Nobody addressed my liver or my gallbladder. Now I have no gallbladder and it causes all kinds of other problems. So understand that we have to take care of these organs. Getting your liver healthy will help your gallbladder stay healthy and prevent you from building stones, because the gallbladder is fed by the liver. If the liver is able to do its job and everything inside is contracting like it should because insulin hasn't impeded that nerve signaling, you'll stay healthier. Now, if you already have fats building up in your liver, if you already have your AST and your ALT on your complete metabolic panel, your yearly panel going up, understand that you can still reverse that. It's not like the end of the world. You need to address it as soon as you start seeing it, knowing that all these things are going to happen. You're going to increase risk of diabetes. You're going to increase risk of losing your gallbladder. You're going to increase risk of liver failure and liver damage. So you want to get control of it early. And how you get control of it is getting control of your insulin, allowing your liver to have space and room to function like it's supposed to, and allowing it to be as insulin sensitive as possible so it's not having malfunction in the jobs that it's supposed to do. The liver impacts not only those things, but the two of the biggest things that people talk to me about: weight and well, three: weight, your heart, and your mental function. So people who are worried about Alzheimer's, dementia, um, migraine headaches, fatigue, brain fog, all of that. Your liver being sick affects your heart, it affects your memory, and it affects your weight. If your liver is not functioning properly, if it's overloaded with all of these fats, you will impede your ability to lose fat. Because remember, the all the fat storage stuff where it's decreasing the rate of fatty acids in the oxidation in the fat cells, and then but it's increasing oxidative stress in the fat cells. Now you're putting on more fat and unable to burn fat because the liver's not functioning. When you start to get the fat out of the liver and allow the liver to contract and function like it should be because you stopped inundating it with sugar, your weight will start to come off. So even if you've gotten your blood sugars under control and you're resistant to weight loss, one of the issues that could be happening may be that your liver still has way too much fats built up in it and it's still not functioning properly. So we're going to dive into how to take care of that in a little bit here. But I want to talk about some signs and symptoms that you may be starting to have a liver that's going bad. Um, because all of this is really, you don't want to lose your liver, you don't want to lose your gallbladder, you just don't want to have any of that happening. I'm looking for all the symptoms because you guys, I can't remember all of this. Where did I put them? Did I breeze by them? Maybe I didn't even pull them up. You will have things like yellowing of your skin. You'll have inflammation going on. You'll see discoloration around your feet and that swelling. That your liver is not functioning properly. If your hands are swelling, if your skin is itchy, if you're having gastrointestinal distress, like you're bloated all the time, those are signs and symptoms that your liver is starting to struggle. So if you look at just one thing like gas and bloating, that might not be a liver problem. You start to combine it with some of the other things, and you have to understand that your liver is starting to struggle. You need to pay attention to it, even if your doctor is not talking to you about it yet. Maybe they're inundated with other things that your health is causing them to focus on. Those are some symptoms that you will know that you're having a liver problem. Some symptoms that you know that you need to get it under control. One of the amazing things that's going to help, there are a couple of things that we want to talk about to get your liver healthy. Intermittent fasting is absolutely one of the things you need to do to help your liver discard that fat to become more glucose sensitive, more insulin sensitive, and to be able to start working like it should, decreasing the fat within the liver. You got to get the sugar under control. Okay. How you can get the sugar under control is by increasing fiber in your diet. So, fiber first. You hear me talk about that a lot. So do doctors like Dr. Fung, Dr. Bickman, Dr. Hyman, Dr. Berg. They all talk about getting in fiber first. A lot of them will talk about it in a natural food source. In order to get our fiber that we need in that natural food source, you have to eat a whole lot. It's like 8 heads of broccoli now because of the change of our food environment. Our food is not as nutrient dense or fiber as dense as it used to be. So now we start to have problems getting fiber from our natural foods. Have a salad before dinner, perfect. Probably not enough fiber. That's why I do the fiber that I do, which is just in a little packet. Makes it easy. I put it in some water and then I drink it down before I eat. Fiber first. Fiber is going to help slow down the metabolism of sugars. So it slows down, even when you're having carbohydrates, it slows down how quickly it hits your bloodstream and how hard your body has to work to deal with all of those sugars. So fiber helps with that. But it's also helping clean up your gut and give a better environment in your gut, creating more probiotics. And all of this is addressing your liver and helping your liver have room to breathe and do its job. Fiber is really key. So fiber first when you eat, then prioritize protein. Now, again, if you're trying to eat a bushel of broccoli to get your fiber in, you're not going to get to the protein. And protein is extremely important. It's a building block. It has some energy source in it. So protein can actually spike your insulin, but only about half as much as carbohydrates will. But it's also necessary because of the building blocks part of it. Again, I do this fiber because I don't want to have to worry about having that much of natural green fruits and vegetables in my house so that I can get all the fiber in I need every time I eat. I use fiber from those same sources but condensed into a packet. Now, fiber first, that allows me to focus then on my protein, and about 50 grams of protein to 75 grams of protein is what I aim to get in each meal because I'm only eating 2 meals a day. That's going to help. Getting some exercise is going to help. When your liver starts to become insulin resistant, we're really relying on the tissues to turn it around. And one of the biggest tissues that can help turn that around is in the leg muscles. So, walking, I'm not going to say get on a treadmill for an hour, but walking with some weights on, doing some squats, doing some exercises that incorporate highly the lower body will help you clean all of this up. But intermittent fasting is one of the biggest clues that can easiest and most cost effectively help bring your liver back into homeostasis where it will work and function properly. So now in intermittent fasting, one of the premises is it's not about calorie restriction, it's about restriction of glucose. What you got to think about is that every time we eat, we're putting glucose into our body, we're spiking our insulin. So if you're a person who's been told to eat every 2 hours, eat 6 times a day, you're continually spiking your insulin, and that's causing all of this problem with the liver and the gallbladder, and you're putting yourself at risk. We've got to stop it. We really only need to eat about twice a day. The rest of what we eat is emotion, it's stress, it's whatever. Check in and make sure you're eating when you're supposed to eat, eating by your hunger, not by your brain, saying, I'm bored, I want to eat, I'm stressed, I want to eat, I'm happy, I want to eat, I'm sad, I want to eat, all of this stuff that goes on. Intermittent fasting allows us to get into this state where our liver can function and the rest of our cells function because we're allowing insulin to come down. We're allowing the body to understand some other things that it can do, like the production of glucagon, which is actually there to increase the blood sugars and is doing it by breaking down fat cells, by allowing the liver to start functioning and getting that glucose back into this bloodstream so that we have energy to function on without the addition of food. Insulin resistance and fasting, one of the best things you can do for insulin resistance is some fasting. And I'm not talking 3 10-day fasts. Yes, you can do that under the supervision of a doctor, but just about anybody can fast daily and just by extending the window of which they didn't eat. And that will allow the insulin levels to come down and our body to start functioning the way it should be, especially our liver and gallbladder. So fiber first, prioritize protein and fasting. Now, one other thing is those fats. We want to talk about fats. I cannot say this strongly enough to reduce the amount of omega 6s you subject yourself to. Understand that every packaged food has, I shouldn't say every, just about every packaged food has a ton of omega 6s in them. Then you go out to eat, it's all cooked in omega 6s. Omega 6s increase or have something called linoleic acid that increase your insulin resistance. Those omega 6s then are causing more of the disruption in your liver. So this is where the fat conundrum comes in. They're saying cut back the fats, but what they're really meaning and what the message no one is understanding is that it's those omega 6s that we're eating in too high of amounts that's causing the problem. If we focus on healthier fats and omega 3s, so things like extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, butter, ghee, animal fats, and yes, the yolks in your eggs, those are giving you fats that your body actually needs because remember, fats are what build the cell membrane that hold the muscles and many of our other cells together. When we're doing a low fat diet, because we don't know what fats to eat, we don't know what fats are damaging us, we're actually damaging that membrane. We're also impeding the function of the liver and it's causing more problems. So getting in the and actually getting in the right amounts of or the right kinds of fats like these coconut, avocado, olive oil, butter, ghee actually helps your gallbladder function more properly. Okay. The omega 6s impede that function. So, sugar, omega 6s are something you've got to start staying away from. Now, are we going to ever, unless you're some zealot, I guess I would call it, that can just be perfect the rest of their lives. Most of us are going to be subjected to sugar or omega 6s in our today's modern food environment. So we just have to do the best we can to avoid them. That's my thought is, yeah, if we could get them out of our system altogether, amazing. But most of us can't. So understand you're getting enough sugar and omega 6s in every time you pick up a packaged food, whether it's a bag of chips or a box of cereal or um, I don't know what else is packaged. Eat very few packaged foods, but you have an increased sugar and decreased fiber and increased omega-6 in all of those foods, and that's really setting you up for problems. So you guys take care of your liver to take care of your diabetes, your heart, your memory function. Now, we didn't talk a lot about the memory function or the heart, but I do want to talk a little bit about brain function. Most of you will hear that glucose is the preferred source of energy for your brain. And so, um, has anybody heard that? That our brain, because I did when I started this journey, that's what I thought, that's what I knew from the science that I'd been told. Glucose is what the brain needs for energy. Like we don't have energy in the brain, we have brain fog if we're not getting glucose in. But the issue is, glucose is not the preferred source of energy for our brain. Ketones are. It always cracks me up when we talk about intermittent fasting and I have somebody say, "Yeah, but I'm going to be hangry," and everybody's cranky when they're fasting. Audio isn't on. Let me fix that. I was wondering, so I've been talking this whole time, and thank you for saying that. Well, hopefully Facebook and YouTube got the message, and I will be posting videos from everything I just talked about in a little while over the next few days. There we go. Okay, so I've been talking about liver. We may have to go over some of that. I forgot what we were talking about now. So, um, stay away from from omega-6s and sugars, and you'll start to feel better. You guys on TikTok, I'm so sorry. I did not know that the sound was not on. So I will put shorts up to kind of summarize this talk. Maybe we'll do it again another day, and I apologize. So you guys just understand that we need to get our liver healthy to keep away from diabetes, to keep away from heart problems, to keep away from memory problems. Glucose function in the brain, that's where we're talking. Had to talk through it enough, Emmy, to remember where I was at now. So the glucose brain thing is not true at all. Our brain actually functions better on ketones. Um, if you listen to me, I talk a lot about doing weight-bearing exercise, and that's one of the ways that we become insulin sensitive. And while the sound was off, and so you didn't hear it, I was talking about exercise and especially utilizing things that activate your legs because your legs are one of the greediest for carbohydrates or glucose when they're active. So if we're stuck in an insulin resistant mode, yes, we want to do fiber first. Make sure that we're getting fiber to regulate the sugars. We want to prioritize protein. We want to do some intermittent fasting, but I always talk about exercise and especially the lower body. The more active you can get the legs, whether you're taking a walk with a backpack on to add some weight bearing to it, and doing that a couple of times a day. It only takes 10 minutes 3 times a day to start becoming better. You can do squats. You could do those at home. I do them off the edge of my couch. But those muscle or weight bearing activities definitely are going to help you become more insulin sensitive. But it's not the only thing. So it's part of my six steps to addressing your insulin resistance. So let's go over those really quick. I had 5 fingers up, 6 steps. Fiber first is premise one. Prioritize protein is premise two. Don't fear healthy fats is premise three. Limit your carbohydrates is number four, right? So bagged, boxed, barcoded carbohydrates, especially. Do some intermittent fasting. Time-based eating is number five. And guess what? Principle number six is get your body moving. All right. So, and here's the thing when we talk about muscle mass and insulin resistance, when you're insulin resistant, you are less able to put muscle on than when you're insulin sensitive. So now it becomes even more important to work on the muscle mass, but you've got to get the sugars under control so that your body can even understand to do that. So it's another one of those bidirectional things. Yes, energy, exercise is extremely important, but I'm not talking about long bouts, hour-long bouts of cardio. I'm not talking about, doing 400-pound squats like I used to do. You can do body weight squats at home. You can put some you can do yoga, whatever, but add some weight bearing to your exercise. You're absolutely correct. It will help you with your insulin sensitivity. And I do talk about it a lot. You just must not be here when I do, because I do almost every time I talk. So those are the 6 simple principles to it. We want to understand. Sorry for you guys on TikTok who missed all of this. Um, but what we're talking about today is getting the liver healthy to make sure that you're insulin sensitive, you're able to lose weight, your heart is functioning, and your brain is functioning more properly. I don't know why I have an itch in my throat, but I do. So, how I did it, how I got my liver healthier. Unfortunately, I just watched a video this morning. It was amazing to me. Yay! I finally got to a point where I searched up something on YouTube, and one of my videos, actually 2 or 3 of my videos came up. Woo! That's a crazy spot to be in this morning. But this video I was talking about how I had noticed my AST, my ALT, my liver panels going up as we were working on my diabetes. I started paying much more attention to my labs once I understood that I had a real solution. So as I was getting better, those labs were coming down and my liver was getting better and my doctor was no longer concerned about it. And yet, just a couple of months later, I landed in the hospital septic and almost dead because my gallbladder was so full of stones because the liver wasn't functioning properly, and I lost my gallbladder. They had to take it because it was at that stage. So I talk about all of this stuff a lot because most of it I've experienced. I don't want anybody else to go through it. Having no gallbladder sucks, you guys. I am unable to digest and metabolize a lot of foods like I should. Um, and that's going to cause problems with nutrient absorption and fatigue and all of that. So save your gallbladder. It's a tiny little organ, and they will poo-poo it off like, oh, it's no big deal. It's just this tiny organ. We're going to remove it. And then they remove it. And then you realize you become even more insulin resistant when they remove your gallbladder. So your insulin resistance causes your gallbladder to stop working, and the gallbladder being removed causes more insulin resistance. So that means more damage throughout the rest of the body. Don't do it. Start addressing your insulin resistance now. Now, how I did it was when all of the medications the doctors had me on for hypertension, for lipids, for pain, for memory, for all of the stuff, nothing was getting me better. And then I stumbled on this simple system that I do. That is the tea that I drink every morning and the same tea that I drink in the afternoon. I do a little bit of intermittent fasting. I move my body. Like there's stairs outside my condo, and I don't, instead of walking down to the elevator, I use the stairs every day to go in and out. And I really enjoy that. Remember, 3 years ago, I couldn't go up and down stairs because I was so sick from insulin resistance. So I do this system. I have this fiber. Remember, I was talking about fiber and how key it is to helping your liver. And you'll hear all of these, Dr. Fung, Dr. Bickman, Dr. Berg, all talk about the importance of fiber to help your liver. So my fiber, instead of having to worry about eating 8 heads of broccoli or, huge salads, I just do this. And look, this doesn't break my fast. So I can have this morning, continue my fasting window. I did it in a regular bottle today just to show you. You don't have to have the company bottle to do this. Shake it up a couple of times. This is the berry flavored, and this is gluten-free, halal, and this is just the fibers and some natural flavors and a little bit of stevia for sweetener. It has a light berry flavor, and it's actually pretty good. It has a little tartness. This will start to thicken up in this bottle, and that's what's making the magic happen. That fiber. Let's talk about fiber a little bit. And you guys, again, I feel so bad that I was not being heard. I couldn't see the numbers today, so I didn't understand that there was nothing going on. So thank you for saying that. All right. Fiber, especially soluble fiber, slows down digestion and absorption of carbohydrates, and that helps you have more stable blood sugars. And it reduces the insulin demand and prevents blood sugar spikes. So, soluble fiber is really important. But soluble fiber is not generally what we're getting a lot of when we're eating that big salad. We have done a lot of research at the company. Scientists have figured out which fibers are the ones that regulate blood sugar the best, and they're what's in here in a combination. 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers in there. So we have blood sugar control with the fibers. The insoluble fibers, so soluble insoluble fibers, now let's take 20 steps back. Fibers are a non-digestible carbohydrate. On your packaged foods, you're always going to see it as a carbohydrate, but it doesn't digest as a carbohydrate, so it doesn't impact your sugar levels in a negative way. They in fact impact your sugar levels in a positive way because they're helping regulate the rest of the sugars that you eat from being digested too quickly. The soluble fibers means it soaks up water. Insoluble fibers means it won't soak up water. The best fibers, not the best, the fibers I think that you can understand the best for insoluble fibers would be like if you were to bite into a stalk of celery and that strandy fiber, that's an insoluble fiber, those long strandy ones. So this has it's insoluble fibers which help with insulin sensitivity, and they have soluble fibers which helps with blood glucose regulation. So you said wrong, and I don't know what wrong was too, so explain that to me and maybe we can have a discourse about what you thought I was wrong with. Because all of this information is coming from actual science, scientific papers, and doctors like Bickman, Fung, and Berg. So fibers can also help you with your liver by increasing your liver function and reducing the risk of fatty liver disease by reducing the load of sugar that you're having to digest and metabolize at a so when we have no fiber in our food, what we want to think about is it's like IV, a straight shot of sugar into the bloodstream. Basically, when we have fiber, it slows that down, so it's more time released, and we're getting less of the sugar absorption, and we're getting less of it absorbed at any given period, and that's how it's reducing a blood sugar spike and reducing an insulin spike. Sugar spike stays down, insulin stays down. Ben Bickman and Jason Fung are known con artists that have been exposed over and over. You sound like somebody that I don't know. Anyway, I that's untrue. Ben Bickman has been traveling the world educating doctors. Ben Bickman, by the way, wrote this book, Why We Get Sick. He wrote another book, How Not to Get Sick. Beyond that, he's been spending his entire life in metabolic sciences. He studies fat cells in petri dishes every day. He's one of the leading experts on metabolism in the entire world and trusted by more doctors about metabolism than just about any other metabolic scientist out there. Yeah, you can. So here's the thing, you can do research and you can find positive and negative on anything out there. So that's that's just how it is. Exposed so many times, and yet, based on the science of these guys, there are so many people who have reversed their diabetes, increased their liver function, increased their kidney function, reversed PCOS, reversed a number of these disorders and diseases by doing that, the things that these doctors talk about. So um so I still lean on their research because there's so many doctors who stand behind them and who have felt felt like the medical industry has been misled, and that some of the truths that these doctors tell have really helped their patients when they were unable to help them before. That's what I look at is Are they actually helping people and the information helping people? Yes, they are. So that was unique, you guys. I rarely ever have people come on that are that uh, vitreous, but it happens from time to time. And it's okay because everybody has their opinion and everybody gets to live in the world they live in. But for me, all of the other things that were happening, all of the things that doctors were telling me did not help. This system and this knowledge is the only thing that turned my health around, and it's why I'm here talking about it today. So, you guys, if you're interested in getting your liver under control and helping your insulin resistance by helping your insulin resistance, check out my link and we will you can order the system there. I will get some shorts. Now I'm disturbed. You guys, I have autism, so those discourses really I will have to go sit and think about everything that was said now and work through that. That's just how my brain works. But I'm gonna hop off. We're gonna hop back on tomorrow. I promise I will get up some shorts about this talk today so that you guys who missed it on TikTok can then hear it. And we will talk tomorrow. Thanks, you guys, for joining me. And we'll see you Friday. Have a good day. I can't shut this one down. There we go.